Comrades, on behalf of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist, it's my great pleasure to greet you and welcome you on this extremely important day, which we celebrate every year. It is our anti-imperialist day of solidarity with the people who are targeted by US imperialism. But on this day, principally, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and Socialist Cuba. Already, one of my comrades has explained to you what the importance of these two occasions is. We are very, very pleased to have with us representatives of these two countries, as well as a press correspondent from the New China News Agency, as well as comrades from Laos. If I may invite them to come and join me on the stage. First, Comrade Kim from the Embassy of the DPRK. Jose Luis Garcia from the Embassy of the Socialist Republic of Cuba to come and join us here. I would like to invite now Comrade Marcos Garcia from the Bolivarian Republic's Embassy in London, Embassy of Venezuela. I'd like to invite Comrade Kyo Wong She from the Embassy of Laos. I would also like to welcome Comrade Tian Yuan Kin from the New China News Agency. She's sitting there. Can you stand up for about 2 seconds? Our main speaker on behalf of the party is Comrade Elarul, the vice president of our party, and then we have a speaker from Red Youth, our youth organization, Comrade Rob Amos. So that is the program of speeches. I'd like to say a few words before I start of the meeting. What unites our guests here today is that they represent countries, all of whom have been and continue to be the target of imperialism led by United States imperialism. What unites them is that they've heroically defended themselves and defied the diktat of Uncle Sam. And what is more, each time they have come out victorious. Chairman Mao used to say, all reactionaries are fools. They lifted rock to drop it on their own feet. US imperialism, I sometimes listen to programs on RT. It's a good program compared with BBC, Fox News, and all the rest of it. But all the same, they have a program called Crosstalk. And all the time, the anchor in that program says, why is the United States making a mistake? United States is not making a mistake, no any more than you are making a mistake breathing air. It's the nature of imperialism. They will never stop behaving any other way. As Lenin constantly pointed out, imperialism seeks domination, not liberty, not freedom. When the imperialists lost the Korean War, people around, liberals and all sorts of pacifists and Christians, and perhaps I shouldn't put Christians in that because many of the Christians are quite good, kept saying there will be no more wars by US imperialism because they've learned their lesson. How many years was it before they started the Vietnam War? Not happy with having killed 4 million Korean people, they started the Vietnam War, which killed, and the Indo-Chinese War, where Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia were invaded and bombed. We have representatives of the Laotian Republic here. They will tell you that the Americans sowed so many mines on their territory, it will take the tiny population of that country 100 years to get rid of the mines. Even now, every week somebody dies because they stumble upon a mine. The same thing happened with Vietnam. They will tell you Bashar al-Assad is using chemical weapons. Who used the most chemical weapons in Korea, in Vietnam, and any other places they've gone to? Iraq, Afghanistan, United States imperialism. They use defoliants. Vietnamese and Indo-Chinese people continue to suffer. They did exactly the same during the Korean War. I have been to Korea several times, and I visited the museum at Sinchon. In 1 week, the Americans killed 26,000. I may be underestimating, probably more. 26,000 Korean people. They found on one occasion that the Korean women with their children were singing songs to keep them happy. They sprayed them with gasoline and bombed them till they were incinerated. All in the name of human rights, liberty, and freedom. That's what the Americans have been doing. And that's what they continue to do, as the film shows. The war ended in 1953. They refused to sign the peace treaty with the DPRK. There's a truce, which means it's a peace, but it's not peace properly. It could start any time. They continue to stage provocations against the DPRK almost every day. And then they say the DPRK is testing missiles. What other defense has DPRK against the overweening imperialist powers except to strengthen its own defenses? I want the Korean comrades to know, and I want them to convey this message to their motherland, that we in the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninists, fully support their stance of building their defense forces to defend themselves. Korea has attacked no other country. Korea does not wish to does not intend to start any war. But imperialism does not understand the logic of persuasive arguments. It only understands the logic of arms. And if Koreans cannot match American arms, at least they can have sufficient arms to warn the United States that there will be a very heavy price to pay if you dare invade us. Even such a reactionary as the former United States Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, said, Iraq was invaded because Saddam Hussein had no nuclear weapons, although the excuse was that it had nuclear weapons. North Korea is not because it has nuclear weapons. What's the lesson? Have nuclear weapons. As far as I am concerned, and I'm often in dispute with many communists, I think every country has as much the right to have nuclear weapons as the powers that are already possessing nuclear weapons. Every country that has nuclear weapons, especially the imperialists, they were the first ones to have nuclear weapons. They say they're weapons of a peace. If anybody else has, they're weapons of a war. How do you decide whose weapons are for peace and who are for war? My own view is socialist countries which want tranquility and peace to build their economies and to raise the standard of life of their people do not want war. But imperialist countries who can only have GDP, and their GDP, when they say it's gone up by 5%, GDP includes the production of armaments. It includes prostitution. It includes pornography. So every time you go to a prostitute, you're adding to the American GDP. It's a lunatic economy. It's not measured by the fact how many hospitals, schools, and good roads and infrastructure you have, how many houses you build for your working population. Let there be 25 million or 30 or 40 million Americans who have no access to health service. It's the richest country in the world with every possible resource, with the highest of technology. Can you believe in this lunatic system there are nearly 35 to 40 million people who have no health care? Tiny Cuba is poor. It's blockaded. It's next to this monster called the United States of America. There is not a single person who hasn't got health insurance and who hasn't. Cuban people are more literate. I would go more than that. They are more educated than the average American, which wouldn't be surprising. The average American is not educated. If he has learned anything, he's just learned we got to bring democracy to North Korea. We got democracy to Vietnam. We got to bring democracy to Iraq. And what democracy they bring? I visited these countries. I visited Libya. I visited Iraq before they were destroyed. They were countries with a standard of living which was comparable to the southern European countries like Portugal and Spain, etc. They've been totally decimated. There's nothing to see there anywhere. Ancient civilizations have been destroyed. Their museums have been wrecked. Their artifacts have been stolen by their agents and sold clandestinely on the world art market. But people have begun to stand up. As Mao Zedong said after the liberation of China, the Chinese people have stood up. And Chinese people did stand up. Comrade Kim Il-sung said, the Korean people have stood up and taught a bloody lesson, although at great cost, material as well as human, to the Korean people. But it's better to die fighting than live on your knees all your life. And the Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Laotians, and the Cambodians taught the same lesson. And believe it or not, although there's no advanced ideology that is guiding the people in the Middle East, there's not a single war that imperialism is winning. They've destroyed Iraq, but without winning anything. American people have lost a lot of through tax payment and whatnot. But somebody must gain. As Marx used to say about the East India Company, East India Company, its directors have made a lot of money, but Britain has lost a lot of money. Exactly the same. The armament manufacturers, the oil companies, and all these private security firms have made a lot of money. They cannot actually even afford to have their soldiers killed because they're waging unjust wars. And when soldiers come in body bags, people want to know, what are we fighting for? So they have to privatize the war. Private companies, army work has been outsourced. Even torture is given to private firms, 400, 500 million paid, that you will torture people. You know, what a testimony to imperialist civilization. You pay 500 million to torture. And they can't win. They want to overthrow the government in Syria. And General Austin Allen came before the Senate and he's questioned, General, we had a program for training moderate opposition in Syria. How many people came through the training? He said, not many, sir. So the senator pressed the point, how many? He said, 4. They spent 500 million people. At the end, they had 4 trained fighters to overthrow the government of Bashar al-Assad. They will not win in Syria any more they won in Korea, any more than they won in Vietnam, any more they won in Iraq. Because people have begun to understand what life is about. Very recently, President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela said, United States thinks it is the government of the world. We want to tell US imperialism, you are not the government of the world, and you are not the government of Venezuela. We are the government of Venezuela, and we decide. We decide in our country what we do. They will tell you Chavez was a dictator. Chavez is dead now. Chavez is very popular in Venezuela. So they're a bit soft on him. Now Maduro has taken that role, that he's a dictator. And who are the Democrats who are opposing him? The Democratic opposition is neither opposition nor democratic. It's a group of treacherous clique who actually are constantly inviting the United States to invade Venezuela. Unable to overthrow the Venezuelan government, they have to rely on US imperialism to do that. They're asking US imperialism to apply sanctions against Venezuela. Now, if that is not treachery, what is it? A loyal opposition. I mean, when the Chinese were fighting against Chiang Kai-shek, they didn't say to Japan, please will you invade because there'll be a bit of help for us. Japanese needed no invitation. They came anyway. United States will decide its own course and will decide whether to invade or not. But at least under the Bolivarian Revolution, the Venezuelan people are far better prepared to resist such aggression than they were ever before during the nearly 2 centuries of the history of that republic. Its oil, a major source of their wealth, was stolen by US corporations. And Chavez put an end to it. As a result of that, money was being used in order to uplift the life of the people. They struck a deal with socialist Cuba, and they were able to get a lot of help. In return for oil and other help, they were able to get doctors, they were able to get teachers, they were able to get, we, the oppressed people of the world, and the proletarians have to combine together. Just as imperialism combines for aggression, we must combine to defend our rights, our sovereignty, and our liberty. If we sing from the same hymn sheet, if we are actually prepared to act together, there's no force on earth that can defeat us. Not mighty US imperialism, not the old Roman Empire, and not anybody else, let alone the tiny satellites like Britain and France and Germany. They cannot do anything. That what they've been doing to other people is coming back to hit them. The very jihadis they trained are coming back now and bombing our cities. We condemn that. We condemn that. But we also say, if they're coming, they are not the product of the local society. They are the product of imperialism, which has been very happily sending the Libyan counter-revolutionaries to Libya and go and fight. Now a contradiction has risen between imperialism and the monsters they produce. And they come and bomb in Manchester. And everybody says, how could we be bombed? You cannot keep on setting my house on fire and never expect that your house will be on fire. Slow learning I may be, but I will learn in the end, because reality has a habit of overpowering all other feelings and sentiments in the end. Socialist Cuba is likewise in a position. The interventions against Venezuela didn't start yesterday. It started literally ever since the Venezuelan Republic has been in existence. That has been the whole premise of the United States of America. It's a country which, apart from Australia, is built on a gigantic successful experiment in genocide. They have never stopped committing genocide either internally or abroad. Having eliminated the Native American population, they are actually determined to eliminate. They openly, cynically state, as Henry Kissinger says, they want to produce a bomb. They want to use a bomb in Israel, which will somehow be able to differentiate between Palestinians and Jews. So they'll kill Palestinians, but it will not kill Jews. They have not yet been successful in that, but that's the kind of thing they sing. They do not think anything constructive. They do not think how to improve life of humanity on earth. Can you just imagine if America put the same effort in improving the lives of people around the world? It would be a wonderful world to live in. They spend as much on their so-called defense, nearly $600 billion a year, as the rest of the world put together. And the rest of the world only spends that much because it's forced to do that in defense against America. They're constantly going on against China and Russia. What is Russia's defense expenditure? $60 billion a year, which is less than that feudal ancient relic of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabian defense budget is more than that of Russia. China, which has a population of 1.3 billion, which is more than 4 times the population of the United States, spends, Chinese say $90 billion a year, the Americans say 150. I'll take 150 because it saves the argument. But what is 150 compared with 650? And this has been going on year after year after year. We were told that once Soviet Union collapsed and Cold War was at an end, there will be a peace dividend. And you must have lived in the last 20 years, and there's nobody under 20 in this meeting. Have you seen any peace in the world around? Well, I certainly don't see any peace. And there's only one thing that can be done, and that is get the people of the world ready, A, to confront imperialism and defeat it, and B, support those countries which are in the front line of the struggle against imperialism. And they are represented on this platform. And there's a lot more, comrades, that I could say, but I won't, because you have precious time and we've got important speakers to come after me. So I shall get on with that, I'll start with Comrade Kim from the Embassy of the DPRK to say a few words on this occasion. Comrade Kim, you can stand up.